Good morning to everyone from the Atlanta Council on International Relations. Before I hand it over to Dr. Kennedy for our introduction and the ambassador for his speech, I would like to go through just a couple of housekeeping items with you. First of all, you will be able to see your screen as the one shown on the screen here. You are in listen-only mode. That means we cannot see or hear you. However, we do wish that you would participate in this webinar by going to the bottom of your screen. You can click on the chat box. That gives you the opportunity to chat with everyone in the webinar, send comments, resources, anything you think might be relevant, or you can send a message to an individual person in the webinar. You can also, if you have questions for the ambassador, please put them in the question and answer box, which is at the bottom of the screen. And once that question and answer box pops up, you can see that there is a place to put your questions, and we will take them as they come. Thank you. Well, now I will ask Dr. Kennedy to begin the webinar.
Thank you very much, Sherry. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Atlanta Council on International Relations webinar with Ambassador to the United States, Taranjit Sandhu, who will talk to us today about strengthening the India-U.S. strategic partnership. Let me also express my thanks at the outset of this event to Dr. Swati Kulkarni, Consul General of the Republic of India. It has been through her efforts that this event has been made possible. Swati, you are a superb representative of your country. We are absolutely delighted to have you here in Atlanta. Dear fellow Americans, and those of you who have joined us from countries around the globe, we are indeed living in difficult times. The coronavirus has taken many lives and threatens to take many more. Economies have suffered greatly, as has the livelihood and lives of many of our countrymen and women and others around the globe. It is, of course, our great hope that this scourge will soon be conquered. However, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 is not the only difficulty we face. Today, we find ourselves facing a far more insidious danger, a danger to our societies, to our future, and our inner soul. Here I speak of injustice and discrimination based on race, religious beliefs, ethnicity, gender identification, and any other form of discrimination and injustice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a unique American problem. It is a worldwide problem. But today, I speak to my fellow Americans. In 17 days, we will celebrate the 244th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence. That declaration, ladies and gentlemen, was more than just the breaking of bonds between the United States and Great Britain. It was forged of a new idea, the idea that a free people could govern themselves to the benefit of all. It also established an ideal that all of us are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is no secret that the United States has failed to live up to this ideal. Let us mark the 4th of July with a determination as a united people to end injustice and discrimination wherever it exists, in our hearts or in our society. This will make America the great nation to which it aspires. And now for today's program, it is our special pleasure to welcome our speaker, Ambassador of India to the United States, Taranjit Sandhu. You have already had an opportunity to read his bio. However, I would like to highlight a bit of his background. Ambassador Sandhu, though recently credentialed in Washington, D.C., is no stranger to the United States. Indeed, he is one of the most experienced Indian diplomats on U.S. affairs. He has served in the Indian mission in Washington, D.C. twice, once as Deputy Chief of Mission from 2013 to 2017, and earlier as First Secretary of Political Affairs, responsible for liaison with the United States Congress from 1997 to 2000. He has also been a member of India's permanent mission to the United Nations from 2005 to 2009. Among his other assignments during his 30 years of distinguished service, Ambassador Sandhu has served as High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka and at the High Commission in Colombo. He has also served as Consul General to Frankfurt, as well as to the former Soviet Union and opening the Indian embassy in Ukraine. And of course, he has had various positions in the Indian Foreign Ministry. Ambassador Sandhu, welcome from all of us at ACIR. It is a great pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robert Kennedy. Good morning. Again, thank you for hosting this interaction. I was to visit Atlanta in April and interact with the members of Atlantic Council of International Relations in person, but the onset of the pandemic disrupted our plans and upended our daily lives. The outbreak of COVID-19 is one of those black swan events in recent times that will shape the course of history. As we try to understand this pandemic and governments grapple with responses, we also confront a new normal that is becoming part of our lives. Countries are evolving their national strategies to respond to meet the challenge of the spread of infection, overcome constraints in health infrastructure. Governments across the world had to opt for lockdown to slow the spread of the virus. In India too, after an early lockdown, we are on the path of opening up and are beginning to unlock the lockdown. Containment zones have been identified where restrictions continue to remain in place. Economic activity is coming back to normal in other parts. We have a detailed plan of reopening. In the first phase, restrictions on domestic air and train travel have been lifted. Most economic activity has resumed. In the second phase, we will review opening of schools and colleges. And in the third phase, other activities and international travel will resume. The challenge of limiting the spread in a country of 1.3 billion people with a dense population is enormous. Being a federal country like the United States, responses of different state governments have varied to suit local requirements. The central government, led by the Prime Minister, has played a leadership role and consulted chief ministers, who are like our governors, while evolving a national strategy and providing guidance to the state governments. Our focus is on testing and contact tracing. We have ramped up testing facilities, and there are over 920 labs presently across the country involved in testing. We are testing more than 1,000 samples every day. Grassroots women health workers, popularly known as ASHA, meaning hope, are actively involved in contact tracing. Our death rate is relatively low and recovery rate is over 50%. COVID-19 has had a catastrophic impact on the global economy. Loss of jobs, fluctuations in the financial market, negative growth, and reduced spending are common trends. To mitigate the economic impact, the Government of India has announced a stimulus package of over $265 billion, targeting small and medium business owners, migrant workers, and other vulnerable sections of the society. While there are challenges in confronting the pandemic, there are also opportunities. Businesses are looking to de-risk sourcing and diversify supply chains. The over-reliance on a particular geography has spurred the search for alternatives. This presents an opportunity for India as we seek to grow our economy and create jobs for our people. We are undertaking a range of economic reforms aimed at structural changes and enhancing the ease of doing business with the objective of attracting foreign investment. This is also an opportunity for India-United States relationship, as American businesses may look to shift their production and sourcing. There are complementarities in our economic partnership and untapped opportunities. Over 2,000 American companies have a presence in India, and US is one of the largest sources of foreign direct investment in India. Bilateral trade stood at $150 billion last year. More than 200 Indian companies have created over 125,000 jobs in the United States and invested over $22 billion. The economic partnership between our countries underpins the strategic relationship. India has been a reliable link in the global supply chain even during the pandemic. We are the world's leading supplier of generic medicines, which has given us the tag of the pharmacy of the world. We meet 20% of the global demand for generic medicines. During the pandemic, our partners have looked to us to supply essential medicines, and we kept the supply linkages open and supplied medicines to more than 100 countries, including the United States. In fact, our leadership has emphasized the importance of international cooperation in confronting the challenge of COVID. We have a history of being first responders in emergency situations in our region. India sent medical experts and rapid response teams to Maldives and Kuwait. We sent wheat to Afghanistan to meet their food security needs. We supplied medical goods to Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and many other countries in Africa and Latin America. We took early steps to set up an emergency SARC relief fund to bring partners in our region on board. We urged the G20 to convene a virtual meeting to discuss this very important humanitarian issue. When our Prime Minister spoke to President Trump on 2nd April, he spoke of deploying the full strength of our partnership in meeting the COVID challenge. You will be interested to know that United States platforms such as C-17 Boeing and C-130 Lockheed Martin have been used by India for humanitarian purposes to move relief material and for evacuation during the COVID crisis. As the efforts towards finding a vaccine for COVID-19 intensify, it is in this area that the benefits of India-U.S. partnership can reach the entire world. India meets 62% of the world's need for vaccines. There are at least 3 ongoing collaborations between Indian companies and US institutions for finding a vaccine. Remdesivir, which has been authorized for emergency use against COVID-19, is being manufactured by 7 Indian companies to supply to 127 countries across the world. Gilead Sciences has entered into a licensing agreement with Indian pharmaceutical companies for this. In fact, our partnership in health, life sciences, and technology is a long-standing one and is fostered by open exchange of information and knowledge and based on mutual trust. During the pandemic, our institutions, CDC, NIH, and ICMR have been regularly exchanging information. Doctors and scientists of Indian origin have been at the forefront of the fight against COVID-19 in the United States. Many of them came to the US for higher studies after initial education and training in India. They bring value to the United States knowledge economy. Majority of 200,000 plus Indian students in the US are STEM graduates. Several of them go on to work in tech firms, which are playing a critical role in the response against COVID. They are at the cutting edge of innovation ecosystem in the US economy. Needless to say, it is the close people-to-people relationship and the shared values of democracy, freedom, rule of law, which underpins the strategic partnership between India and the United States. The shared values foster mutual trust and understanding, which enables our countries to partner in a range of areas from defense to science to energy to space. There is an increasing convergence in our strategic vision, which is being seen closer cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. Both India and the United States have reiterated their commitment to promoting peace, stability, security, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. In the last few years, defense and energy have become important pillars of India-US partnership. India has been designated as a major defense partner of the United States since 2016, which has facilitated exchange of high-end technology and equipment. Our defense trade is set to cross $21 billion. Our armed forces are involved in a number of exercises together. Our foreign and defense ministers have met twice in the 2+2 format. As I mentioned earlier, energy has emerged as an important area of cooperation. Our energy needs are growing and we import 80% of our crude oil. We are the 4th largest importer of LNG in the world. From zero, our bilateral energy trade with the United States was expected to cross $10 billion in 2019-2020. This is also enormous potential for cooperation in areas such as clean energy. India took the initiative of starting the International Solar Alliance, conceived as a coalition of solar resource-rich countries. By 2030, we are targeting 450 gigawatts of renewable energy, which will also enable India to meet half of its power demand from clean sources of energy. If you look at space, it is another area where India and United States have had a long-standing cooperation for the last 5 decades. We have the most cost-efficient space program in the world. ISRO and NASA have been cooperating in a range of areas, including Earth observation, satellite navigation, space science and exploration. ISRO has launched over 190 satellites from the United States through its commercial arm. Our partnership has been elevated to a comprehensive global strategic partnership during the recent visit of President Trump to India. COVID-19 is a global crisis, but it is also an opportunity for India and United States to work together in several areas. As we move towards a post-COVID world, ours can indeed be the defining partnership of the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And we will now turn to Tony Kuzukuli, our Director of Programs, who will lead the question and answer session. Again, if you have questions, please put them in the question box and we will take them as they come.
Good morning, Mr. Ambassador. It's an honor to have you as our guest today. Welcome. I would also like to echo what Dr. Kennedy said. We wish to thank again Consul General Dr. Swati Kulkarni for her work in bringing you to Atlanta, and we are appreciative for her. She is a marvelous person to work with. So we thank both of you for being here in Atlanta. Starting out this morning with our first question, our condolences for the recent loss of your military troops in the Galwan Valley killed in a recent clash with Chinese soldiers. This is the largest violent exchange since the 1967 episode in Nathu La. Does India see any change in Chinese behavior that would suggest a resolution to these border conflicts? I'm sorry.
Ambassador, we can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. China and India have a long border. This has not been resolved. It's what is called a line of actual control. We have had a broad understanding of resolving these issues through a number of channels, including diplomatic and military. So at the military level, at the local commanders level, then at the senior level, and then of course at the diplomatic level. We have been having these, whenever tensions arise there, we have been through that mechanism. Now in this particular case, the Chinese had intruded into certain areas, and thereafter discussions took place, and on 7th of June it was resolved both at the commander's level and at the major general level talks that both the troops will go back, and they will basically, there'll be de-escalation in this area. So the de-escalation was begun. One of our parties which came to check out whether the process is going met with this challenge, and apparently the ridge is very, very small. The situation got complicated. There were violence, but of course not gunshots or anything like that, but there was other violence. And in our understanding, this was definitely pre-planned from what we are able to pick up from satellites, from other these things. What we have communicated, my foreign minister had a discussion with the foreign minister of China. We have asked to go back to the understanding which was on June 6th, and we are willing to resolve this through a discussion. But one thing my Prime Minister is very clear, that there is no quarter for any bullying. Essentially, the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of India, we shall stand for that.
I see. Thank you. There is a follow-up question to that I will add to it, if I may. The Asian Times recently reported that India essentially reached, and this is the quote, consensus regarding areas recently occupied by Chinese troops. Is this an accurate report or what might be called fake news?
I'm not aware of this particular report, but as I have mentioned to you, that there is a line of control, actual control, and for, as you have mentioned, for so many years, our effort has been to keep that and resolve the border dispute through discussions, for which there are special envoys from both the sides. So what we are mentioning at this time is, and I don't have to, I think you just need to look around whether there has been any posturing in some of the other neighboring countries too. But one aspect as far as India is concerned, that we certainly are not looking for any fight, but at the same time, as I have mentioned to you, that what are the existing lines, what has been accepted for so many years. Till the time the border issue is not resolved through the special envoys who are working on it, there should be no aggressive action by any side. We certainly don't intend to, but at the same time, we, as I have mentioned to you, we will defend our territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Thank you. The next question reads as follows. The Trump administration is considering to cancel H-1B visas. If it happens, it will directly impact hundreds of thousands of Indian professionals who are working on this type of visa and student workers who plan to join the workforce in the United States. What is the government of India and the Indian embassy's plan to address this with the Trump administration?
The visas is the prerogative of the host country. I think that's the bottom line. At the end of the day, it is the decision of the host country to give visas. So, having said that, there are two aspects of the issue which you have raised. One is regarding green card holders and H-1B holders. You know, most of these, as I mentioned in my initial comments, and in this, I would also include about 200,000 Indian students who are, some of them are completing their education and perhaps may continue to work or may go that side. But the student part, I will come separately. Our understanding is that all these Indian H-1Bs and green card holders here, they bring value to the US companies, to the competitive edge. They are not illegal immigrants. So therefore, in a post-COVID world in which technology is going to play an important role, health sciences, pharmaceuticals are going to play an important role, I think this call will have to be taken in a very informed way on what United States will decide and which are the cases and how it will. Up till now, it's a speculation, it's a political issue, and I certainly do not wish to come into a domestic political issue. But as I mentioned to you, that these people bring value, and therefore their presence at this moment, and especially in the new or post-COVID world, in which United States again will require what I said is cutting edge, these are productive part of that. And not only that, they actually end up creating more jobs. As I have mentioned to you, not only just about Indian investments, but these people, because much of the innovation, much of the new ideas come through this younger generation. Now, if I may also take this to address the Indian students, who are also another category, about 200,000 of them, they too, about almost 3/4, if not 4/5, are in STEM areas. And these are not only they bring competitive edge to the United States, but some of them who complete their studies and go back to India, they form an important link and an important bridge between the United States and India, because they have trained here, they have studied here, and when they go back there, many of the systems, many of the practices they carry with them, and they undertake new innovative, new small and medium industry investments, and that relationship continues. So it's a win-win situation for both sides.
Thank you, sir. I have several back-to-back questions regarding Pakistan, and I wish you to understand that the ACIR does not censor any of the questions that are submitted to me. So I will ask you back-to-back several questions relating to Pakistan, and perhaps you can then address them in toto.
Okay.
One is, what has transpired in India on the national level that wherein the majority began to hate minorities in general, but Muslims in particular? The second question related to this, condolences are sent to your brave hearts who lost their lives, Ambassador Sandhu. Does the border dispute between India and China affect the way India handles its contentious bilateral relationship with Pakistan because of Aksa Chin factor related to the conflict in Kashmir? And the last question relating to Pakistan in this sequence, what is the status of Kashmir in view of the reports of human rights violations in this region? Those are the three questions we have received regarding Pakistan back to back to back.
I think, let me try and address all three together. And since this comes in relation to Pakistan, so I may draw some comparison just to give you a picture, since whoever has sent that. Let us just speak on the basis of facts. At the time of independence of India, there were 25 million Muslims. Today, there are 200 million Muslims. More Muslims in India than in Pakistan. I don't know if you knew about that. Now, look at the minorities in Pakistan. From 15%, where are they today? Maybe not even 1%. I think, one, the facts speak for themselves. Let the facts speak. Secondly, about the minorities you have said in India. One, of course, I've given you the figures, the real figures. Secondly, India is a robust, democratic, federal polity like United States. I am not saying that in every democratic polity there are challenges, but those challenges don't make the entire system. I don't have to explain to you more than that. In all democratic polities, there are. But the Indian Constitution, unlike the Constitution of Pakistan, is very clear. Human rights, right to religion, and secularism is guaranteed. Hinduism is not the official religion of India, but Islam is the official religion of Pakistan. Since you have raised it in connection with Pakistan, I thought I will make that comparison also. Yeah. As far as, let's come to again something which will be very relevant in the United States. You are going to have your elections soon. In India, the effort in our robust democratic elections polity is to increase the number of voters. And in our last general elections, the percentage of people who voted was 75% in a country of 1.3 billion people. We have electronic voting. We have voting in the entire region, even in the remotest parts, including Jammu and Kashmir and other areas. So what I'm trying to mention to you is that in a democratic polity, when millions and millions of people are voting, their vote matters. And that's another example of mine telling you that minorities are a robust part of India. Muslims, Sikhs, Christians are proud part of the Indian social and political fabric. The Constitution guarantees them. But that does not mean that there will not be challenges. There will be challenges, but that's not the rule of law. There are robust courts. Whenever right to equality or right to religion is challenged, you can utilize those. If in a country of 1.3 billion people, once in 2 years or 3 years a riot takes place, that does not make it a rule. You cannot on that basis say that minorities are persecuted. That's an injustice thing. Yes, if there are cases, if there are political developments, then those itself find a way out in a democratic election. One, with the courts, with the National Commission on Minorities. There are lots of avenues, just like your system. And there is a robust press, there's a robust media. So that's one part broadly. Now, you mentioned about Jammu and Kashmir, or even on Pakistan. I just wanted to mention this, that we are ready to talk to them, but after they stop using terrorism as an instrument of foreign policy. I don't think that is any unfair request. So, as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, let me again, and I wanted to, in fact, COVID has given a great opening for India to come together. As I mentioned to you, the number on the figures, all the communities, everybody has come together, including the state of Jammu and Kashmir. I don't know if you are aware that we have the largest healthcare program in the world. It's called Ayushman Bharat. 500 million people are covered by that. And treatment for COVID-19 for the underprivileged is part of that. 58% of families in Jammu and Kashmir are availing that. That is the advantage of the integration of the state in India. I don't know what's the condition of the so-called Jammu and Kashmir, which is captured by Pakistan. That I leave it to you. But this is the positivity as far as India is concerned. And I just wanted to quote my Prime Minister at the start of COVID, just because it has a lot of relevance in the present. He said, COVID-19 does not see race, religion, color, caste, creed, language, or border before striking. Our response and conduct thereafter should attach primacy to unity and brotherhood. We are in this together.
Thank you, sir. The next question is as follows. One of Georgia's U.S. senators recently unveiled legislation offering tax benefits to companies that move their drugs, medical factories back to the United States from other countries. Though targeted at China, this seems to indicate an increasing move in the Republican Party toward general protectionism in the post-COVID era. How worried is India that such moves will carry unintended consequences for the trade investment relationship between America and India?
As I mentioned to you in my comments that in the post-COVID world, economy around the world is going to take a big hit. There are a lot of nationalist tendencies which are coming up on the economic side, but also, as I mentioned, that this is going to be also a time of great opportunity. At least one should convert the challenges into opportunities. Why India will play an important economic role in the post-COVID world? Because first and foremost, because most of the markets around the world have been saturated. As you know, India has one of the biggest unsaturated market. That is the market which is available. It also has the largest working age population, and definitely by 2025 it will be the largest. Today, 50% of India's population is 25 years and below. So that's another advantage. We have realized this, and my leadership, in fact, the Prime Minister, despite the fight on the COVID, which is continuing, but we have also taken a number of steps to undertake structural reforms within India, structural economic reforms. And these pertain to areas like agriculture, in which we are creating a single market. Till now, it was not a single market. It was basically on the basis of the states, but also in the area of defense, atomic energy, space, infrastructure, and as I mentioned to you in my speech, that in the initial remarks, that there is a big investment which we are undertaking. An important part of that is spread on these areas, including investing in small and medium industries, because we firmly believe that innovation comes from there. So due to all these factors, we have also, we have about now 3,300 industrial parks. We are ensuring that our tax regime becomes very competitive. A lot of other initiatives so that investments are attracted towards India. No country is going to manage on its own. United States and India during this COVID crisis have been reliable partners. Whatever inputs, especially in pharmaceuticals, United States were dependent on India. It was ensured that those are supplied. Therefore, I feel confident that in the post-COVID world, there is an opportunity for United States and India to partner together. There are complementarities, and we will be able to work together and help each other in the supply chain.
Thank you, sir. The next question reads as follows. How would you describe New Delhi's policy towards Iran, and how does it work within the context of a growing relationship between India and the United States?
I think no one knows better than you that there are always challenges in foreign affairs. Each country has a relationship with another country, but that does not mean necessarily that X and Y and Z cannot be effective partners based on their own national interest. So yes, Iran and India have had a very, very old civilizational relationship. But that does not mean that we have not had challenges. We also have had challenges. As I have mentioned to you that in the post-COVID world, a lot of changes will take place and a focus will ultimately come around to economic recovery. And in that, I'm confident, not only in that, but also in the strategic affairs. I don't have to go into details into that, that I'm confident that United States and India's bond will grow deeper and we'll have a lot of common grounds to stand on and our relationship will be robust. And the third country relations will not have that deep impact on our bilateral relationship.
The next question is as follows. Many observers believe that as long as India does not have a permanent veto seat on the United Nations Security Council, it will not be recognized as a rising great power. What is your government doing to overcome such perceptions?
I think the COVID has also indicated to world over, and particularly United States, the necessity of reforming international organizations, not just limited to the UN. We have been reading so much about WHO here. So I think this is going to be an opportunity in the coming years to ensure that Security Council and other international organizations are representative of the existing realities of the world. So India is not saying that we should be part of the Security Council just like that, but it's a country with 1.3 billion people. Now, if the United Nations is to be an effective instrument, and if other international organizations are going to be able to respond to the coming challenges, then they do need to become representative. So I do feel now that because of the current COVID crisis, there is a new look, even in United States, at many of these international organizations. And perhaps as a part of that, reforms will take place. Hopefully, all the countries will come together and make the international organizations more effective.
Thank you, sir. I have two questions regarding Sri Lanka that I am going to consolidate so that you may address each of them. The first question reads as follows. India has had a close relationship with Sri Lanka over the millennia, and yet by 2018, it fell victim to China's debt bondage trap. That led to Sri Lanka being forced to give China a 99-year lease to the port of Hambantota. How can India assist Sri Lanka and compromise China's strategic advantage overlooking the Indian Ocean? The other question that relates to that, if I may, another member has asked a similar question, mentioning Djibouti and Cambodia's Ream naval base open to China naval access. How does India plan to counter China's strategic moves to control the Indian and South China Seas?
I think broader aspect of the Indian Ocean If you take a look at the map and you see the access straight down to Africa, and there you will see that Hambantota comes very prominently at a what would be logistically somewhat of a middle ground. So certainly there is a strategic value to that. However, from what I understand, and this happened before I was there, but apparently the studies had shown, because you have a port already existing in Colombo, that is the capital of Sri Lanka, and you create a big port in Hambantota, it was expected that the traffic to Colombo will be impacted by that. Therefore, there was a consensus in Sri Lanka for a number of years not to construct a port in Hambantota. I think rest is history. We do all know that why Hambantota was picked up. It had connections with political leadership of the day that time. So unfortunately, the cost of building that port became very heavy because this was not a natural port. And as has been typical cases in a number of other countries, when the investments are so heavy, the port, when it started functioning, even till today, there hasn't been much traffic. So the debt increased, and rest debt into equity story, I think many of you have read. So you have a point there. It's not just India. A lot of other countries also are responsible for the situation. And of course, first and foremost, it is the Sri Lankan leadership. It has to see that way. So once even the Hambantota port was completed, there was this popular thing which was being spoken about that nobody else is coming forward. And I do recall that some people there suggested that perhaps the port can be divided in 4 or 5 parts and given to different international actors so as to balance it. But the leadership, due to the said economic problems, fell into that debt trap, and it's an issue today. So there's no doubt, there's a challenge all around our neighborhood. But democratic countries, the right-thinking countries, have to come together and see in what way the alternatives can be offered. But first and foremost, the leadership and people of those countries have also to realize in their own national interest that it may look in the immediate sense that you get money and you can do certain projects, but in the long term, actually, they lead to much, much worse economic consequences. So Sri Lanka is also part and parcel of the same situation.
Mr. Ambassador, we have approximately 3 minutes, no more than that. You have a vast knowledge to share with us. I will pose this last question and hope that in less than 3 minutes, you can solve the problem for us. What role does the current technological Cold War between the U.S. and China play in India's decision for deploying or developing 5G technology? Will it boycott Huawei, focus on creating its own firms, or allow in Western firms? 3 minutes to answer a 300-minute question.
Look, as you are well aware that technology, particularly so now after COVID-19, and look at the way we are interacting. It's all thanks to technology. But that's where the challenge comes. We need to secure this. Sometimes some of the platforms we use are not secure, and perhaps they inhibit open discussions. So I think each country will have to take a call based on getting the best technological advantage, but also looking after its own sovereignty, its own independence, and its own security. So it will be a combination of all these factors. And I can assure you that India is very much live to that. We are certainly not looking to close ourselves and just look inside. We will interact, we will be partners, but we will also keep in mind and ensure that we are conscious, and I can assure you that we are very conscious about security, especially in some of these high-end technology issues. So whatever decisions we take will be well considered one. And I don't know if you will be really disappointed with those.
You have been most forthright. We are so honored to have had you today as our guest. We thank you so much. Very quickly, we've had one of our advisory board members, Craig Myers, who was so taken by your address that he is hoping someday he may have the pleasure of tea with you. I am now going to turn the program back to Dr. Kennedy. I thank you so much, sir. Stay well.
Thank you very much, and you too, stay well, and your family.
Thank you, sir.
And I hope to have tea with you in Atlanta soon.
Ambassador Sandhu, we know you have to run, but again, we're honored to have had you with us today. We thank you very much for your very frank and thoughtful comments and answers to our questions. We think we have a better understanding, particularly of how your nation is dealing with the COVID crisis and how you're cooperating internationally with other nations to resolve some of the difficult problems we face in that regard. Also, the kind of work that you're doing in India to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on not only the human beings, but also on the economy. It's also been a great pleasure to hear your view of the U.S.-India partnership in a variety of areas. Again, thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We wish each and every one of you, your family and your friends, good health and great happiness. And for your own safety, please go ahead and wear your masks and do social distancing as is appropriate. From Atlanta.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and your entire team, and wish you all the best.
From Atlanta and the ACIR, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.